Welcome back to Most Clicked. Liking our videos and subscribing to our channels is the only payment that we ask for in return for the most popular digital marketing stories in higher ed every 2 weeks. I'm your host, Nathan from Smile, a leading digital agency for the higher education sector. And today I'm joined, as always, by my good friends, Matt from Smile and Kyle, not from Smile. You will know Kyle, however, from the Education Marketer email newsletter. Now, later today at 2 p.m. GMT, we do also have a webinar coming up called Everything Will Be Fine, Probably. It's going to be a somewhat cynical take on 2021 digital marketing efforts in the higher ed sector. So look out for that on YouTube and LinkedIn, and hopefully see you there later. Kyle, Matt, how you doing?
All good, thanks. Yeah.
Great. Kyle, you're the man as ever with the examples. Would you like to introduce our special guest?
Okay, well, today we're going to talk about Vanderbilt University in the US, and we actually have their Executive Director of Digital Strategies joining us, and I'd like to introduce Lacy Pachal.
Hello.
Lacy, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living? You've got quite a title, I must say.
I know,
sure I wrote it down, so I didn't.
We like all the words in academia. If we add more words to our title, it makes it bigger or something. So I lead the digital strategies team at Vanderbilt, and we manage the entire web presence for the university. It's about 1,700 different websites. We support about 8,000 different users that kind of manage the content on those websites, which is insane. That there's that many people that kind of have input into kind of what's on the website. And my team is primarily developers and project managers. We've got some content strategy folks. And we also obviously provide a huge amount of support and training for everyone who's using our design system and all of our back-end systems. And anytime, anything on the campus that has a digital component, we, serve as a consultant on those projects as well. Or if people are wanting to buy anything, any type of system or tool or something that they're going to be using for their website or for digital purposes, usually they'll ask us to come in and kind of weigh in on it and do a review of kind of what's going on. But yeah, the internet at Vanderbilt. That's just
that's you.
Yes, the internets.
I mean, it's funny. It's very similar in the UK, just not quite at your scale. And I think it's important because we have a large UK audience with this show to highlight the numbers you gave at the beginning. That's not you kind of, exaggerating. That's the actual numbers of people you serve and how many websites there are. So I included this because it was part of one of the most clicked items this week, and it actually came in an article I wrote about community, funnily enough. And I'm sure Nathan and Matt will talk about the web and how it all links together. But the piece that was written about this week, it looked at how Vanderbilt has a very strong sense of its purpose and who it serves. And it has this wonderful page on the site called This is Vanderbilt, and you unpack each of your principles. You give backup supplementary content to what each of those represent, and you even pull in the student voice after each principle and value. And this is something you don't see very often on university websites, such a focused vision of what it stands for and why it matters to students. So, I'm really curious how you find this flows through the work you do, especially in the area of content, and how you ensure that this sense of what your community is really makes itself heard in the work that you do.
I think you kind of touched on some of how this page kind of came to be was, we're 2 years into a really large initiative at Vanderbilt called Future VU Digital. And it's actually the reimagining of our entire digital campus. And that's kind of how we think about our website. Is our physical campus is obviously super important. We are a residential colleges university, so we absolutely believe in the in-person experience. and that students need that interaction with faculty and with the other students in person. And actually prior to COVID, what we were like well into pitching this project and getting buy-in by our chancellor, all of our vice chancellors. And we had the first vendor demo to find our vendor demo 1 week before we all went into quarantine. And so we had an in-person demo, and then everything else from that point forward was actually all done via Zoom. And it was super interesting to kind of be working on reimagining the whole Vanderbilt web presence when everything with COVID first happened, because if our digital campus wasn't important before COVID, it was like the end all be all, everything so important during COVID. So some people were like, oh, I can't believe you guys are still going forward with this project with COVID going on. And it was like, absolutely, we're going to go forward with this project. And yes, it's kind of crazy to be doing it while all of this other stuff was going on, because, you know, we sit within comms at Vanderbilt. And so everything about COVID comms was also flowing through our division. And we were running this big project. But like our digital campus is, you know, 100% of the students that come to Vanderbilt are interacting with us via that digital campus. And so that project started. And to go back to your point about kind of that This is Vanderbilt page, that was developed. We very much believe in kind of saying who we are, but don't say who you are without backing it up with like, here are the proof points of like, yes, we say we're collectively striving to succeed. Well, everybody can say that. But like, what are we actually doing? And that shows, well, we're actually doing exactly what we're saying. And here's the proof points. And that's actually what we call them, is like, here are the proof points. So if we're going to say we are this, then here are 3 examples where you can then learn more that backs up that, yes, we do collectively strive to succeed. And we are a very collaborative community, and our students work together. And yes, it's very academically vigorous, but we also highly encourage that collaboration and working together, because that's what you actually are going to need in the real world later. Yeah. It can't just be cutthroat all the time, because when you get in the real world, you have to work with other people. So also tied to that is we have always been at Vanderbilt. I think this is just a good kind of example of it. We've always been a fan of, you need to tell the students stories and have it be that authentic student voice. Because while we can say as Vanderbilt, obviously we are communications and marketing, we can say all day long, hey, we think this is great, or we think this is like our values. But if you can actually tell the students stories and use their voices again as a further proof point of those things. And so we have quotes kind of all throughout the website, not just on this page, but we have quotes and stories that we link to all throughout the site, linking to student stories and faculty stories. We're also a huge undergraduate research institution. And so our undergraduate students actually get to do research with a lot of our faculty. And so we highlight those stories as well. So I think 2 of our big things are like, don't say something if you can't back it up with real things that are actually happening on your campus, or in our case, you know, obviously also on our digital campus. And then really use that student voice, because students, another thing that we do, and we have done this for years, and it's super, super popular, is we have an undergraduate student blog. Blogs have obviously been around forever. They are still super effective. And so our undergraduate students blog about their experience through Vanderbilt events, but also just like living in Nashville. And so the whole experience of like, what is it like to move to Nashville, to live on campus, to go to school here, and everything around that. And it is definitely like moderated by Vanderbilt folks, but we don't change kind of the tone, or it's more just like, let's just make sure there's not like expletives in a blog post. But again, that authentic voice is so important. And students can tell when something is marketing and when it's like, we've written these quotes for people. Students know that. I mean, they're like savvy. We're, you know, digital natives, that's, we're many years into our students being digital natives who have always been around technology. And so they can tell when there is that authentic voice of students actually telling about their experience. Even sometimes when it's not positive, we allow, those stories can go out of like, yeah, sometimes things don't go the way that you hoped they would go. So we try to infuse that throughout the whole site. So that page is definitely, we love that landing page as like a succinct place where we say, this is who we are. We're also this is definitely in flux as well. And so we aren't just going to leave these, the 3 that we have there. We're definitely like fine tuning and refining this. And that's another great thing about everything digital is, digital is fluid. And as you need to adjust things, you can. And so even now we're having conversations about how we can further kind of refine what we're saying we are. And then as new proof points come up that we think might more closely kind of show what we're doing, we kind of swap those out as well. That was a long rambling answer to your first question.
I'm assuming, Matt, this is music to your ears, yeah? These are conversations that you're always having, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, from a brand positioning point of view, your content is brilliant. But for me, from a design perspective as well, the relationship between the content and the design is so strong. It feels really high end, exclusive, editorial. I love the typographic treatments that you've got going on and the color palette. We talked about it. Nath found your site, brought it to the team a couple of months back. And yeah, it's up there as one of our favorites that we've
I have to give a shout out to our vendor partner who I like. No, they are not paying me to say this. It's Upstatement. They're in Boston, and I have been at Vanderbilt, and I've worked in web and digital my pretty much entire career. But I've been at Vanderbilt 14 years. The best vendor relationship like we have ever had. Like they were a partner with us from day one. Like we went to them with kind of this is what we're looking for. And we really are looking at this project as not being a redesign. We didn't just want to put new wallpaper up on the same old stuff that we really wanted to look at, especially in the time, in COVID times. We're like in 2020, because that was when we were initially starting to work with them. In 2020, if we didn't have a website, what should a higher education website have on it? And it wasn't like, oh, we have this page, this page, this page, this page, and we're going to move it over. But it was a very, very intentional, what should a website have right now? And obviously we are super early on in this project. The first phase of it launched in July, which was the top level Vanderbilt site, undergraduate admissions, and our news and research websites. And so we're starting to work with our 10 colleges and schools. Well, we're not starting. We're almost ready to launch 2 of our schools now. So it's a long project. But it is really with all of the schools and colleges, we're doing the exact same thing of like, okay, hey, Peabody, which is our College of Education and Human Development. Hey, Peabody, if you were creating your website for the first time right now in 2021, what should you have on your website? And there is not a one-to-one correlation of their old website and their new one. And that's really the first time we've ever done that, of really looking at the entire Vanderbilt web presence as a whole and not looking at it as much as like 1,700 individual websites. But like, where does the Peabody site sit within the overarching Vanderbilt digital campus? And again, our vendor partner, like the design and it's so streamlined, it's so clean. We love the typography. But yeah, they were just a really great partner. And I think that's like, if you are going to work with a vendor partner, really finding someone who they really felt like they were part of our team.
Yeah.
And so we were both able to give each other tough feedback. Like sometimes we'd be like, that is not it. And we start over. And they would receive that feedback so well and kind of go back. And then we'd all get to a place where we were happy. And then they would tell us, you really need to not do this. I know you've always done this, or like, all of, politically, you might think that this needs to happen, but let's actually like think about it this way.
Yeah.
And so there was definitely a lot of mutual respect in there. So again, shout out to our vendor partner. And I think it was just like a great kind of combination of people on their side and our side. And Vanderbilt was just ready to kind of do this.
And the dream project by the sounds of it as well. It sounds perfect.
Yeah, it was so interesting. So we didn't meet anybody from the vendor partner in person until after we had launched phase 1. They were able to come to Nashville for a different project, and we actually ended up getting together with them in person, and it felt like we were meeting old friends because we had been on hundreds and hundreds of hours of Zoom calls and all of that together. And and so we're still partnering with them on other initiatives now. But
nice. Well, I could talk about this for hours, I think, and we'll have to start doing special episodes or something, extended cuts or something like that. But thank you so much for talking to us about your site, your kind of insight and thinking. Lacy, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
Definitely, you can find me on LinkedIn, Lacy Pachal Vanderbilt. You'll find me, or on Twitter, I'm at Lacy Dev, LACYDEB. That's probably your best bet, or those two.
Nice one. Thank you very much. Well, hopefully you'll stick around for the next 2 items that are coming up. And the next one, I think, are we talking about Mark Zuckerberg once again, Kyle?
No, Nathan, we're talking about the metaverse.
Oh, right. Yes, totally. It's a completely
we
different
should not
thing,
be always associated with Mark.
He's one of the metas.
He is one of the metas. The fact that he named his company after it does not mean he's any way, shape or form involved, but he is involved. But the whole... he started something, hasn't he? I mean, it's not like it wasn't happening already, and there's a lot of very talented people working in this space. But he started something because, Facebook's a very large company, and what it does matters, whether you like it or not. There's the waves are starting to happen now, and a lot of brands are looking at what this metaverse thing, whatever form it takes, means. And definitely over the last few weeks, a few have started moving beyond dipping their toe in and starting to take a little bit of a paddle. And I've seen a nice example from Nike recently. Just probably looking at the metaverse in terms of a PR strategy. They've built a space in the game called Roblox. So Roblox is like a very sandboxy kind of game. You can build stuff, you can build worlds, have people walk around these worlds and interact. And Nike have sort of built like call it a fun park, if you like, based on their HQ. People can play games in there, make friends.
My 7-year-old likes Roblox.
Yeah, well, this is it, isn't it? And that's the wonderful thing about that platform, is it's targeting that up and coming demographic who will view this stuff as normal. But I just saw it and I thought, okay, well, Nike's doing it. There's a few other brands going into it. There's a few sort of decentralized versions of the metaverse kicking off. There's one called Decentraland, which is selling plots of digital lands. People are buying it. And there's lots of experimentation going on right now. It's like 0.5. It's not even 1.0 yet, if you look at it in the equivalent sort of terms of the web like that. And for me, it's very exciting. And I like this kind of idea of pioneering territory and exploring these things and picking them up, playing with them, trying to break them. Nath, you're probably a little bit more skeptical than me. Am I right in saying that?
Skeptical, cynical, either way. I don't know. It's like the metaverse at the moment just feels more like an overarching umbrella term for things that aren't websites that exist on the internet. It's not really a true thing yet. And the Roblox thing is cool. Is it metaverse? No, probably not. This stuff's been happening in like computer games for a while. Like we've had concerts in Fortnite now, but that's not the metaverse. It's just something that's happening in a computer game. But now it feels like we've got a neat term to wrap a lot of stuff up in. I think Nike have been super clever in jumping on the trend of, whilst metaverse is kind of trending in the news. look, I'm excited about the future generally, and metaverse stuff, but I feel like it's a way off.
Oh yeah,
To
for sure.
me, it's a very similar conversation to like VR, and how for the last 5 years VR is going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread, and yet everyone I know that's got an Oculus loves it for the first week and then throws it in the corner forever after. It's just, it's not mature. The concept's great, it's just not mature. And I think it's something that as marketing bods and even as technical bods, we should 100% be aware of this and understand the movements that are going on. But I think I've got that level of cautiousness, and I just want to watch the experimentation happen. And just, but I would never let it anywhere near a production environment right now as a university personally.
I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of conversation around people resistance to it, perhaps. And the thing is, for me, I kind of feel it's already been here for a very long time. I mean, I've grown up playing like video games like Pokemon, Legend of Zelda, and I've sunk thousands of hours into these things. For want of a better way of phrasing it, I've lived in those worlds. Not a million miles away. It's just a different way of experiencing it, isn't it? And like you say, it's a new way to categorize these initiatives.
Yeah, totally. Well, on new categories, let's move on to our third, potentially. I mean, given that this is probably the last most clicked of the year, I think that this story takes the biscuit for most outrageous, most clicked item. Kyle?
Yes, I mean, so much so that I had to read it a few times to make sure I knew what I was looking at. I'm just going to check my notes here to make sure I get it right. So, someone called Pano Cainless, he used to be a president of a small liberal arts college in Maryland. He's decided to start his own university with a bunch of other people, which is fine in itself. But this university doesn't seem to exist. It's got a website. It's called the University of Austin, but there's no students, there's no campus. There's nothing that would suggest it's a uni. But one thing it does have is a truckload of ideology. And once you kind of scroll past like the sort of standard sort of imagery here and start reading what's actually on this site, it sounds like a bit of a Trump rally. You've got things like they're searching for the undeniable truth, and there's a few others in there that just make my prep up my attention. Preparing for a generation of leaders to renew the promise of American society. It's like, whoa. Okay, so you start to dig in this thing, and it just seems like a vehicle for a certain way of looking at the world, and got thinking it's crazy that these things can pop up. And is the higher ed sector fragmenting somewhat? Is it possible today to through digital connect with a bunch of people who would rally behind this sort of thing and make it happen? And would it be legitimized? But it looks like a normal sign until you start digging, and it's mad.
That's for me is the scary thing, is that university websites have such a convention to them that anyone can start a university website by the looks of it. It fooled me. When Carl, you sent me the link, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll find someone from this university. And you're like, whoa, not a university.
Don't do that.
What? Yeah. Really? It proper fooled me. And when like you say, when you read it, you're like, oh, hey up, no, something's off there.
Yeah, it's not quite
so
there,
that's a particularly interesting one, I think.
I mean, it also on the brand side, Matt, I thought it's quite interesting that the site, even though it has literally no history, it's positioned itself like some sort of Renaissance painting.
There's all of these kind of grand colours going on and stuff.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It looks like it's been taken straight out of like an art book.
And again, that typographic choice as well. Yeah.
But maybe we can take something positive from this, and if you can leverage those design patterns and aesthetics for good, then it shows how actually you could put something together that does speak to a very specific tone and an audience quite easily, I guess.
My
Right.
only comment is I'm relieved that they don't have a .edu address.
Yes.
But at least like they haven't been granted a .edu. So they're restricted to .org.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, that just about wraps up all we've got time for this episode of Most Clicked. Thank you very much for watching if you've made it this far. And if you have made it this far, definitely go and check out the back catalogue now, wearesmile.com/most clicked. Also, please do consider liking and subscribing. It really does help us to put the next ones on. As I said, this is probably the last one for 2021. So as weird as it sounds, I'll see you next year in 2022. Bye.